to Pure Picks. This is Gerard, and today I'm going to be sharing my most confident picks, and by the end, I'll even share my best underdogs, so stay tuned for that. So let's get right to it. My first confident pick is none other than Lenny Kravitz himself, Payton Talbott. I mean, there's not a lot to say here. I mean, he's like a minus 9,000. I mean, I've always said this guy's the real deal to Alex and James, but they haven't started to come around until now. What I can say though is I do remember this time in Venice Beach. This was back in New Year's Eve. I was biking around Venice, and by the paddle courts, I saw Payton Talbott. He had his shirt off and everything, and you see his tattoo dead center on his stomach. I don't know why, but I kept thinking this guy's name was Jordan Levitt. And I think that was because they were on the same card back in Vegas when Chase Hooper was facing Jordan Levitt. And Payton Talbott got that submission win in the second or third round, I think. Yeah, I just never, I never said hi to him because I forgot his name. But no one's forgetting his name now. I mean, he's a minus, I don't know, minus 1800 or something crazy like that. So yeah, this is a simple pick. Um, I got the man from Vegas to show out and win by knockout. So easy pick there for me. Now for my second most confident pick, I got Joe Pyfer. I think Pyfer has learned from his last loss and will bounce back. I think this is kind of maybe a setup fight for Pyfer to get back on the win column. And yeah, I mean, Alex did a best bets video earlier this week, and I agree with his full breakdown on that, so I'm not gonna say too much on this fight. Check out that best bets video by Alex. He gives a nice breakdown there. And as for my final most confident pick, I got Diego Lopes beating Brian Ortega. And I just think Diego Lopes is a very, very dangerous guy in this division. He can win any which way you want it. You can KO, submission. I'm pretty sure he can go the full 3 rounds, no problem. We've seen him in his debut fight against Movsar. He impressed me in that one, going 3 rounds and almost finding finishes, but losing a decision in that. I think Brian Ortega might be blocking a lot of shots with his head in this one against a very dangerous budding star in Diego Lopes. This is up a weight class. That means that the strikes are probably going to be a lot harder. Lopes is not a slouch on the ground as well. I think this is a bad recipe for Ortega in my book because, yeah, I think Lopes can find a finish in this one. I'm leaning towards a knockout, but I wouldn't be surprised if Lopes finds a sub. Although I do think Lopes might steer clear of the ground game and getting into any submission exchanges against Ortega. I think he would want to avoid that. So I think this is probably more going towards a TKO finish, something like that. I mean, Brandon Ortega is tough, but I'm going to go with the budding star, Diego Lopes, I think this is a setup fight for Diego too. I think this fight is a little bit of a setup for Diego to show out as a co-main event. I think they're building him up. I think they are building him up here. So, yeah, that's my pick there. And as a rerun to my most confident picks, Lenny Kravitz, Payton Talbott, Joe Pyfer, and Diego Lopes. I think these guys are getting fed sacrificial lambs or just spots for UFC future stars to shine or bounce back. So that's why I have those three as my most confident picks. And now for the best underdog, in my opinion, for UFC 303. All right, first let me show you my thought process for a few dogs I was looking at. I was looking at Vinicius. I mean, this guy's dangerous. Ricky Simón has been looking kind of suspect on the stand-up, so I was like, maybe there's some value there. Macy was an underdog. I think she flipped to a favorite recently. I think she has a well-rounded game. She is facing a dangerous submission threat who I think she hasn't seen of that level in that submission game in Bueno Silva. And Anthony Smith, with a lot of these changing of matchups, everyone canceling, and I think Delitse in this fight coming short notice, moving up in weight. I think Anthony Smith, this is a very winnable fight for Anthony Smith. So I was looking at that there, but I kept going back and forth, and there's one name I kept going back to, and that guy is none other than MVP Venom himself, Mr. Catch-em-all. All right. All jokes aside, I like Michael Venom Page, man. I really do like Michael Venom Page. This guy's striking, his speed, his awkwardness to prepare against. Even at 37, I mean, I don't see much loss in his step, to be honest. He has great timing, he's unpredictable, and if it stays in the stand-up, where there's a good chance that most of this fight will be in the stand-up, I give the edge to MVP. He has that 80-inch reach on him, and he's very good at distance, managing distance. And I think his experience is very underrated, even though he's only had one fight in the UFC. People think that he hasn't fought UFC level fighters, but throughout the years being in this game, he's been sparring UFC fighters for a while. And as for Ian Garry, I mean, those leg kicks are going to be something to look at for MVP. Ian Garry should use those leg kicks to get MVP off balance. We've seen MVP stumble a few times before by leg kicks. Ian Garry, he mostly has that basic, fundamental, technical kickboxing style for most of the fight. And I actually think Ian's easiest path to victory is to use a heavy grappling game plan and fight on the inside as much as possible, like a Mike Perry. But this is a big but. It's a question mark. We don't know if he's going to do that. We haven't really seen that from him from fight to fight, for him to be grappling, showing a ground game, and fighting on the inside is not necessarily his go-to fighting style. He usually likes to stay on the outside like a Michael Venom Page. How can I trust that Ian's going to be using that grappling or ground game? And how confident are we that he will be good in that area? He doesn't really show it. Even though he's Taekwondo and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu base, we don't see the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu so much. I don't believe Ian has the best sparring partners to prepare for someone like Michael Page. I mean, Michael Page is like a puzzle in the stand-up. He really keeps you guessing. You don't know when he's going to strike, really. And on the flip side, Michael Page has plenty of experience fighting those basic fundamentals and technical kickboxing styles. And this is going to be Ian Garry's first time facing a style of a Michael Page. And that's something that I don't think you can simulate in training camp. So even though I think Ian Garry is a young star in the UFC, I do think it's in the UFC's best interest to have MVP get matched up to a guy like Ian Garry and find a win. I think UFC do want to see a potential blockbuster of MVP versus Leon Edwards in the future. I don't think Ian Garry needs to win. I think he can afford a loss to an iconic MMA fighter like a Michael Venom Page and still be a future contender in this division. Yeah, in this one, I'm going to go with my underdog, my boy MVP. And if Ian eats the type of shots that Holland was taking, MVP can find a finish. And I think MVP can catch him. No pun intended. Very pun intended. So, yeah, that's my best underdog, Michael Venom Page, Ian Garry, looking to catch them all. And if you enjoy these videos, don't forget to smash that like button and subscribe. So, see you in the next one.